Alright, let's talk about this one. Dune Prophecy is an HBO series showrun by Alison Shapker, based on the novel Sisterhood of Dune by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. It follows the story of Sisters Valia and Tula Harkonnen, sisters of the Bene Gesserit, a coven of space witches who traffic in political and religious influence. Having seen both of Denis Villeneuve's films, and having read most of the first book in the series, I'm something of a Dune expert, and as such I can say that the Bene Gesserit are a completely badass and supremely intimidating faction in a universe of constantly shifting alliances. Watching them execute their subtle manipulations is just as entertaining as when they straight up bend people to their will using the voice. What Dune Prophecy gets right is the intrigue of the Sisterhood and their methods. They are masters at setting up dominoes before knocking them all down in precise fashion. What Dune Prophecy gets wrong is once the dominoes are all set up, they aren't knocked down with artistry and grace, but rather half are drunkenly knocked all over the room, while the other half remains untouched, frigid, and ultimately uninteresting. The season started strong, introducing us to a plethora of new characters in the Dune universe. The royal family of the Carrinos, consisting of the Emperor and his queen Natalia, as well as their daughter, the Princess Inez, and their bastard son Constantine. And our group of senior sisters, Mother Superior Valia, her real sister Tula, sisterhood sisters Kasha, Francesca, and Avila, as well as the sisters in training, Lila, Emmeline, Jin, and Theodosia. I'm not gonna lie, I had to look up the names of about half of those characters, but the half that are memorable had some pretty good moments at the top of the season. Valia has a particularly interesting backstory, believing herself to be chosen as the ultimate successor after the previous Mother Superior passes, leaving behind a vision of a reckoning to come, giving Valia access to hidden knowledge that will help save the Sisterhood and keep their stronghold on the Imperium. The show is centered around her quest for power, at least it kind of was, as by the end she really felt like she was being sidelined in her own show. Another storyline and characters that started off strong were Tula and her connection with Sister Lila, being put in a serious moral dilemma when having to manipulate the younger sister into the life-threatening agony when things begin to escalate. This storyline is genuinely interesting, but after being set up, it largely gets put on the back burner until the end of the season. The show instead chooses to focus on Desmond Hart, a mysterious man with mysterious powers whose mysterious motivations and origin won't be revealed until the end. Mysteriously. He's primarily a weapon of whoever is using him at the moment, starting as a pawn of the Emperor before being seduced by the Queen. The last episode also implies that he may be the pawn of a third party, further illustrating the lack of direct agency in the character that also has the most physical power. He arrives on the scene claiming to have been reborn after being consumed by a worm, now somehow able to burn his enemies alive from the inside out. He's even able to resist Mother Superior in her signature move, the voice. Throughout the entire season, the audience is left constantly wondering who Desmond is and why he's able to do the things he can do, and when the show finally gives us a few answers, it leaves us not only with more questions, but more concerningly, apathy. It's that, I watched this whole show for this? Feeling you really don't want to have, and the recently announced Season 2 can't serve as an excuse for an unsatisfying resolution now. Which leads me to the royal family and their laundry list of forgettable storylines. The prince is literally purposeless, yet another character that has his agency dictated by whoever he happens to be in a scene with at the time. The Emperor and Queen spend their time quarreling, which should lead to a Cersei Lannister usurping Robert Baratheon's throne kind of dynamic, but it's not nearly as effective. The Emperor is a milquetoast, ineffective leader by everything we're shown on screen, yet the writers also expect us to believe that his rule is worthy of a massive rebellion. Rounding out the royal family storylines is the Princess Inez and her affair with Swordmaster Kieran Atreides. He's training her in close quarter combat and trying to get close to her quarters, if you know what I mean. But he's also part of a plot to blow up her entire family. This character is more wishy-washy than a bar of soap on the shower floor, constantly swaying between wanting to be a part of a greater cause and being the princess's boy toy. The pieces are there to have dramatic tension between two of them bleed into other dynamics with her family, as the two are now in a Romeo and Juliet-esque scenario. But the princess doesn't even find out and confront Mr. Atreides about this until it's far too late to do anything interesting. She herself is touted as a central piece to the Bene Gesserit plotline, crucial to their desire to control the throne, but at no point is she fleshed out enough for me to believe that she's up to the task. The more I think about it, the more the show is filled with that feeling of dominoes beautifully arranged and orchestrated, just being haphazardly kicked across the room. Characters like Sister Emmeline or the Prince Constantine have no purpose in the story, with the latter being written out before the final episode. In the end, we are left with so many questions that are more about the poor logic of the writing and the characters than they are about intrigue. Why would a Fremen, who is also a sister, bring her robes with her to the very place she's running an undercover operation? Why would sisters trying to cover up a murder plot make a mass grave for the bodies in the very place where the murders occurred? Why would Valia encourage Lila to take the agony, knowing she might see memories that would lead her and her mother's spirit to take back the sisterhood? And how and where did Desmond get his thinking machine Freddy Krueger powers that fill the user with technology-driven fear? I can accept that as an audience member, you aren't always going to get the things that you want to see or have things paid off in a way that you personally find satisfying. But at the same time, I think there are things that the audience should have gotten, but instead we were woefully underserved. The reveal that Desmond is Tula's biological son sets up a compelling showdown between him and her surrogate daughter, Lila, that we have yet to see. The revelation that Valia is corrupt and has been receiving aid from a thinking machine, absolute blasphemy in the sisterhood, doesn't result in any significant confrontation, at least for the time being. Sure, all these things might improve in future installments, and as a fan/encyclopedic level expert on the Dune franchise, I'm willing to give it another shot. But the fact remains that this first season is textbook squandered potential. This one is going to get a Carino+.